Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are taking a deep dive into a definitive, verified map of Anthropic's AI landscape, exactly as it stands right now in August 2026. Because let's be honest, with all the recent developments, the new tiers dropping, the agentic tools everywhere, it can get a bit overwhelming to keep track of it all. So we're going to visually break down this entire ecosystem so you have a crystal clear understanding of exactly how all these tools actually fit together.
So to kick things off, let me ask you something that might seem like it has an obvious answer. What really sits at the very top of the Claude ecosystem right now? I mean, if you're a power user, you've probably already got a specific model in mind. You're likely thinking of that massive powerhouse we all know. But, as we're going to see today, the actual absolute top tier of Anthropic's lineup might completely surprise you.
Here's how we're breaking things down today. Number 1, meet Claude Opus 5. 2, enter the Mythos Tier. 3, the export control drama. 4, the full model lineup. And finally, 5, where to find Claude.
All right, Section 1. Meet Claude Opus 5. Let's anchor ourselves with a heavy hitter right out of the gate, Claude Opus 5. This is Anthropic's top generally available model, and it is specifically positioned for your absolute most complex challenges. We're talking extended reasoning, super intricate multi-step analysis, and difficult engineering work. Basically, Anthropic notes that this is the exact model you want in your corner when the cost of getting an incorrect answer is just way too high. It isn't just a basic chatbot, right? It's a really heavy-duty problem-solving engine.
Now, before we go any further, I want to be completely transparent with you about what we are actually skipping today. I know a lot of you are laser-focused on finding out exactly what is new in 5.0 compared to 4.0, but today we are not covering benchmark deltas, context window sizes, pricing per million tokens, or exact release dates. Why? Well, because this explainer is built strictly on verified authoritative architectural facts as of August 1st, 2026. Those exact numbers exist out there, sure, but they constantly change. We are focusing purely on the hard structure of this incredible ecosystem.
Moving right along to Section 2, enter the Mythos Tier.
Okay, here is where we get to challenge that common assumption I mentioned earlier. Remember just a minute ago when I emphasized that Opus 5 was the top generally available model? Well, it actually isn't the absolute ceiling of Anthropic's technology. Sitting right above Opus is the Mythos Tier. This is a newer, even more capable class of model that represents the true, cutting-edge, bleeding edge of their entire lineup.
And within this elite generation, we actually have two distinct models to talk about, Claude Mythos 5 and Claude Fable 5. Now, they share the exact same underlying base model. It's literally the same core brain. But Fable 5 wears a much heavier suit of armor. It carries some really significant additional safety measures, covering stuff like biology, cybersecurity, and LLM research. So you get all the raw capability, but wrapped up in highly specialized guardrails.
So what's really fascinating is how Fable 5 handles those guardrails in the real world. It uses this neat trick called safeguards routing. Because Fable 5 is so incredibly capable, especially in sensitive areas like cybersecurity where misuse could be disastrous, Anthropic tuned its safeguards very conservatively, and they openly admit these safeguards are going to sometimes flag totally harmless requests. When that gets triggered, Fable 5 will literally hand the microphone back over to Opus 5 to just answer the query defensively. Anthropic says this routing only happens in fewer than 5% of sessions, but think about that architectural quirk for a second. You could actively select Fable 5, but actually get a reply from Opus 5 if you brush up against those heavy safeguards.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering how you can get your hands on the raw, unfiltered version of this tier. Well, under a special initiative called Project Glasswing, the Claude Mythos preview remains highly restricted. It's actually not publicly available at all right now. Currently, it's only being used by a very small number of trusted organizations, which definitely adds this super fascinating element of VIP exclusivity to the absolute top of their ecosystem.
Which brings us to Section 3, the export control drama. Because the deployment of this insanely powerful tier was far from a smooth ride, it actually threw Anthropic right into real-world geopolitics. Let's look at the timeline. On June 9th, 2026, Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5 were first released. Literally just 3 days later, on June 12th, Anthropic had to abruptly suspend access to both models to comply with U.S. Department of Commerce export controls. The models were literally yanked offline. It wasn't until June 30th that the department finally lifted those controls, and on July 1st, Anthropic was able to restore model access. Just a really stark reminder of how heavily scrutinized these top-tier capabilities are by government regulators right now.
All right, Section 4, the full model lineup.
Let's zoom out for a second and just look at the complete unified picture here. At the very top in the Mythos tier, we have Mythos 5. That's the most capable one, but again, preview limited. Right next to it is Fable 5, which is that Mythos space but with the added safeguards we just went over. Then, stepping down to the Opus tier, we've got Opus 5, sitting as your incredibly powerful, generally available model for those really complex challenges. Below that is Sonnet 5, which continues to be the perfectly balanced everyday workhorse. And finally, at the foundation, we have Claude Haiku 4.5. That's your fastest, lightest option for quick tasks. Honestly, having this mental map is absolutely crucial for making sure you're picking the right tool for the job.
But here's what makes this lineup a total game changer in practice. It's a feature called dynamic threads. Basically, you aren't locked into your choice. Users can actually switch models right in the middle of a conversation. So you could literally start a thread with Haiku to quickly gather some basic information and then swap over to Opus 5 to run a really deep, complex analysis of that exact same info. Because you can mix different models and therefore different knowledge cutoffs in a single thread, you are seamlessly leveraging that entire table we just looked at.
And finally, Section 5, Where to Find Claude.
So we know the models, right? But where do they actually live? Well, Claude is expanding its footprint way beyond a simple chat box into what is essentially a true agentic ecosystem. Beyond the standard apps and the API, just look at these specialized surfaces. You've got Claude Code for your command line, you've got Claude Tags, you can delegate tasks right inside of Slack, and Claude Design, which gives you this awesome canvas interface to produce designs directly from chat. It's literally everywhere.
But there is one more major surface area I've got to highlight here, and it all revolves around the number 3. See, there's this agentic knowledge work desktop app aimed specifically at non-developers called Claude Cowork. And what is so amazing about it is that Claude Cowork acts as a tool driver for exactly 3 specific workspace agents: a browsing agent for Chrome, a spreadsheet agent for Excel, and a slides agent for PowerPoint. It takes Claude's reasoning and injects it directly into the 3 core applications where most knowledge workers are already spending their entire day.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. As Claude rapidly expands from just being a simple chatbot into this massive agentic ecosystem, literally driving your spreadsheets, writing your code, operating in your team's Slack channels, which tier is actually going to power your workflow? Are you going to rely on the everyday balance of Sonnet 5? Do you need the complex problem-solving of Opus 5? Or are your challenges so monumental that you'll be reaching for the safeguarded power of Fable 5 in that exclusive Mythos tier? It is a genuinely fascinating landscape right now, and I really hope this map helps you navigate it perfectly. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.